Hello and welcome to this segment of Arts Talk. I'm Sherri Burr, and I'm very pleased to have as my co-host for this segment Matthew Sanchez. Welcome, Matthew.
Thank you very much.
And our special guest today for this segment is author Pari Taichert, who just came out with The Socorro Blast. So welcome, Pari.
Thank you for having me.
So we're going to let Matt begin this interview, so why don't you ask Pari a question?
Okay, well, I just had an opportunity to read The Socorro Blast a couple weeks ago, and from what I understand, it's the latest installment of the Sasha Solomon series, correct?
That's correct. I have 2 other books, yes.
Well, how'd you get started with writing?
I've been writing ever since I was not a baby, but ever since I could hold a crayon. Really and truly, I started writing, and I didn't think about publication for a long, long time, and then when I was pregnant with my first child, I read a really bad book. And I thought I can do better than that, and I didn't. I sat down and I wrote a manuscript, and it was horrible. But that's when I got the bug to actually write novels.
Who knows? Maybe that person was writing theirs in crayon. Maybe that's
Yes.
so bad.
Maybe that's what happened.
So, how have you developed your style as a writer? How's it developed over the years from when you began? Because you said your first manuscript was really bad. So, what sort of things have you done to practice your writing ability?
Well, you just write and write and write and write and write. That's the main way you practice. But I think what a lot of beginning writers make the mistake of writing about themselves. We always think that we're the most interesting person around, and we are to ourselves, but not to many other people. And so the more you write yourself out of your work and let the characters become characters, I think the better writer you become. But it's a typical mistake, and I'm sure my first manuscript was very much like that.
Well, do you see any similarities between yourself and Sasha, the protagonist of The Socorro Blast?
Everybody sees me as Sasha. All of my friends, everybody who knows me thinks I'm Sasha. And I have to disabuse them of this notion because I'm not. Though we do share autobiographical information. We both went to the University of Michigan. We both speak several languages. We're both Jewish, those kinds of things, and Jewish growing up in New Mexico, which is a theme throughout my books, a small theme. So we shared those things. But I'm married, have kids, happy in my life. And Sasha is very much, has a messy love life, has tremendous conflict in her family, and we're very different in many other ways.
Do you ever find yourself kind of living vicariously through Sasha as a character?
Absolutely.
Absolutely?
Absolutely, I do. And sometimes I'm really ashamed of what she does, because it's just not what I would do. I'm not proud of her at times.
Yeah. What advice would you have to people that are interested in getting involved with writing and publishing?
Oh, heavens. Where do you want me to start with this?
How did you start? How did you first get involved?
Write. The first thing you've got to do is write, and you've got to write a lot, and you can't be a poseur and say, oh, I'm a writer, because you've got 3 paragraphs on page 2 or something like that, or because you keep the second thing. I think the first thing is to write. The second thing is to finish what you write. The third thing is to let people who don't love you and don't care about you read your stuff. So that you get honest criticism about it. The whole business, when you say how do you get started with writing, a lot of times now there's the implication that it's writing toward publication. And I would like to separate that more, because I think there are a lot of people who want to write, who love to write, who need to write, but they don't necessarily need to try to get to published. And those are very different things and very different pathways.
You said earlier that it's good not to write about yourself, but do you see yourself drawing from your previous experiences when you're constructing like a Sasha Solomon novel? Well,
I think writers are scavengers, and we go out into the world and we look at people and we notice tics, we notice characteristics about them, and we take them and they get mushed up in our minds and then end up on a page in some way or shape or form. So I'm certain that I've taken parts of my past and reworked them and reshaped them for my fiction.
Okay.
But I'm not sure I've done more than that.
So it sounds like you base your characters off of people you interact with in
A tiny bit.
Right? Has anyone ever been offended by a characterization that they think is them?
No, I've been pretty good about it.
Yeah.
People don't recognize themselves. And oftentimes what I'll do is I'll name a restaurant. Like if I make up a restaurant, I'll name it after somebody who I think is incompetent or something like that. So that's how, as mystery writers, we get to take revenge a lot. We get to kill people. We get to do all of those kinds of things. And so I'll do that. But no, and I had one instance with an artist who I was going to include in the Socorro Blast. And after we interviewed for about 2 hours, she said, well, you will be basing this on me. You will use my name. And I said, no, I won't. I want the freedom to create the character however I want to do it. And she said, well, I'm not comfortable with that. And I said, well, then I guess I won't write you into my book.
Whoa.
Because I couldn't have that constraint.
Right.
And also from a legal perspective, I didn't want anybody messing with me.
Well, in your novel, you use a lot of humor, and there's a lot of humor interlaced with it, but it's kind of the iceberg effect. Underneath the surface, there's a deeper meaning to it. Do you do this a lot in all of your books? Do you find that it helps to talk about serious subjects with humor?
I do, and especially with the Socorro Blast. I mean, I did it in the Clovis incident with family dysfunction, and I did it in the Boleyn Hitch with religiosity versus spirituality and sort of the issues around that. In the Socorro Blast, this entire book is about intolerance. It's about intolerance at every single level you can possibly imagine it, from within a person and within, siblings, all the way up to how the media perceives people. And yeah, I really work very hard to get that to be palatable. And I think humor is a wonderful way to do it.
And I've noticed as well that there's a lot of New Mexico influence on the novel, obviously. It takes place in New Mexico, and you've had a book that takes place in Clovis, Socorro. Have you ever thought about having like a Sasha Solomon novel that's outside of New Mexico?
Sasha books will not be outside of New Mexico. I'm published by the University of New Mexico Press, and her gig is here, and there are enough small towns here. I am working on an entirely different series that's going to be everywhere else.
Okay.
So,
do you find it more interesting to write about mystery novels, or what's your favorite novel to write personally?
well, I'm writing mystery. The next one is mystery fantasy. I like mystery because I can do series and paint on a very large palette, and that interests me. I can create character arcs over, several books. So, and mysteries are fun because you have a lot of leeway.
What do you do when you experience writer's block? I know that's probably a feared word to you, but do you ever experience writer's block, or do you just have to truck through it?
Yeah, I don't quite believe in writer's block. I've had times when everything I've written has been really bad. I've had times like that where I've had to throw it all away, but I force myself to write through it. I don't have tolerance for, I can't do it, because, I don't have tolerance for being precious about writing, because it is my job, and by God, I've got to do it.
And is there anything in particular you would want the viewers to know about the Socorro Blast or any of your other novels?
Just that they're really good reads, and that you can be entertained, you can read them as if they're beach reads if you want, but again, that they have all of these multi-layers so that they can be a lot more meaningful. And I would hope, especially with Socorro, that it would be used even in university classes to talk about intolerance.
Wow, what a perfect way to end. Thank you. Thank you, Matt, for what a great interview.
Thank you very much for having me.
And thank you, the audience, for joining us for this segment of Arts Talk with Pari and Matt.